After reading the Fulbright's text, I had a lot of mixed emotions about IDEA and all of the issues that have come up with compliancy. My very first reaction after reading the introduction, even though I've learned about IDEA, and I remember, that it came into play much later than I thought, it always surprises me every time I reread information about IDEA to remember how late in the game um, laws were created to protect kids with special needs. And it's so crazy to think that it was just 1975 and then updated in 2004 that all of these laws were put into place. It just seems like so late that happened. Another point that I thought was really important in the introduction from the Vulgarides text, as quoted, was that there are two ways that they define disproportionality. The first one is significant disproportionality, which is determined by a numerical threshold that is set by each state agency. And the second is that there's disproportionate representation, which makes you subject to compliance reviews to SEA representatives. My big takeaway from those two different points was that it's so subjective to each state. Each state has the power, at least for the significant disproportionality piece, to create their own numerical threshold, which I found really surprising. There's no consistency across states, and the disproportionate representation really leads us to the piece that was emphasized in Chapter 1, that there are so many issues with compliance because schools are doing what they need to do just to get by. In Chapter 1, Vulgarides says that educational opportunity and access are achieved through IDEA while working in an educational system that does not provide the conditions to achieve this ideal. That's really disheartening to know that as special educators and compliance with IDEA, we have so many things that we legally are supposed to do. However, the environment that we work in really doesn't make that totally possible. In the Sunderville case, Mark said that anything and everything we do is to prepare for litigation or state oversight of the special education department's actions. He also quoted that there's profound tension between civil rights' intent to administer non-biased evaluations and the need to show compliance. I've seen this a lot in the placement I'm at, and I find it really sad that we're almost jumping through hoops just to make sure that we're compliant with IDEA and if we were audited by the state. However, it's not always in the best interest of the student. It's more doing the paperwork to get by, which is something that they also mentioned in the Garytown example. In Garytown, Roger said that he creates paperwork days for his staff just to finish the IDEA compliant paperwork, which is, it's sad because you'd be hopeful that the paperwork days could be used for things that are effective and really providing students what they need, rather than us, like I said, just jumping through that hoop in order to make sure that the state doesn't audit us. Another piece that I found really interesting in the Garytown case was the issues that Vulgarides presented about the non-English speaking parents, that there are so many issues with the translator in the IEP meetings. We have to have the translator because the parents have the right to understand what's going on and should have a translator there to provide for them and to be able to ensure understanding. And the parts about, that translator either takes too long or misinterprets, and the entire time of the meeting is used to have that translator and to listen to the translator is so upsetting that these parents, technically, yeah, they're involved because they're physically present, but that their full involvement, as according to IDEA, is really not possible because of the way that our system works. In the Huntertown case, they talked about outing Xavier for stealing the iPod. And this was also sad that as a school, people are so quick to blame a particular student. I understand that the teacher felt like, well, Xavier was the one who stole the iPod, and we've now solved this case, and so people should know that this is what happened. But the fact that it's so easy as educators to breach that confidentiality piece it's really upsetting. So overall, I just found that I did relate, and I have seen a lot of the issues that arise in being IDEA compliant, and it's really sad to see that there are so many other cases of other people also having conflict with being compliant. And, I'm hopeful that IDEA can be amended again so that there are ways for us as educators to be more compliant while also not feeling like we're just doing things so that we're compliant and we're not just jumping through the hoops, but we're actually serving our students with IDEA and to really do what's best for our kids.